So this is the card we're making today, guys. It's a very easy card, simple, but it's been so popular online. I posted it to my Facebook page and my Instagram page and everyone loved it. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to do. I'm using the Good Morning Magnolia stamp set. Now this is actually not available until the 4th of June, which is why I've held off putting up a tutorial because I didn't want to go too early, but you will be able to get this on the 4th of June, and it's beautiful. It's from our new catalogue. It is a cling stamp set, which means it's rubber, and it actually goes onto your clear blocks, but it clings on. It's that lovely sticky surface on the back, so they never fall off, which I love. We've also got large images and smaller images, so there's small magnolias and this lovely big one that's really the star of the show, in my opinion. There's a flourish and some beautiful sentiments. So let me show you how easy this is to do. I've got a piece of crumb cake cardstock here that I have just folded in half to make my card front. So this is, in Australia we use A4. I've cut it in half and then folded it in half again, so it's just a card front, as you can see. And I'm using Versamark ink, which is a sticky ink, because I'm going to be using gold embossing on this card. And gold embossing and crumb cake were kind of made for each other, in my opinion. I just think they're lovely. And I'm just going to ink up my big Magnolia stamp here. By the way, this is block F, okay, which is our largest block, because it's this stamp's a little bit big, too big for block E. I just want to go over the corner, so I'm sort of going to position this where I think it would look good over the corner here. I'm going to push that down and try not to wobble the camera. Okay, that's pretty good. Oh, and the other thing it's a really good idea to do, and I always forget, is if you have an embossing buddy, you might want to go over first with your embossing buddy. I will do that in a second just to show you what I mean. Where will I put more? No, these guys here. I just want a couple more leaves. I want it kind of going down, so I want it on a slope here. I'm going to ink it up again. And not much is happening at the moment, I know. Versamark is a clear ink. So before I do this, let me just quickly show you what I mean. If I was using an embossing buddy, I would just go in and put the embossing buddy over the top of the paper. What that does is it stops it from having any static electricity that might mess up your embossing and leave little stray bits of embossing in places that you don't want it. So now I have a piece here and a smaller flower over this corner. Okay, I'm going to be pouring my embossing powder. I'm using gold. You could use other colours. You could use copper. You could even use black. But I really, really like the effect of the gold on the crumb cake. So let's just pour this over. If you don't use an embossing buddy, it's not the end of the world. You just want to, I just do a light flick over the back. And I also look carefully to make sure I've got no stray pieces of embossing powder where I don't want them. Don't worry if too much comes out. You're going to be popping it back into the container anyway. So for example, if I had any pieces here, I would just come in with a brush and get rid of any little stray bits of powder. But actually that looks pretty good. On a lighter colour like this, the embossing buddy is not as important. I find it's more important on your darker colours, like if you're embossing on black or navy, you really want to be using your embossing buddy then, because those little stray bits of embossing powder really show up. Okay, all right, so now I'm going to bring in my heat tool, and I am going to speed up the camera so you don't have to watch me do this for quite as long, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so now we have our gold embossing done. Hopefully when I move this in the light, you can see that beautiful gold embossed effect on that crumb cake. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my white craft ink. White craft ink is fabulous because it is a pigment ink, which means that you can do different things with it. It's quite a chalky effect, but I like the Stampin'Up one in particular because it really is white. So it looks good on dark colours, but it also looks good for this technique. What I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze it together really hard so I can actually feel the white pad, the ink inside, being pushed up against the lid as I push with my fingers. And then what I do is I open this up, and there's a nice deposit of ink now on the lid, so I can use this like a palette. So then I'm going to bring in my aqua painter. I'm actually going to make sure there's water running through. There is. And I'm going to get a good solid bit of white ink on this, and I'm just going to start painting. And as I do this, hopefully you can see I'm not being particularly neat and tidy with it. I'm just staying inside the lines of the flowers, but I'm going straight over all the inside lines because the gold embossing will resist your ink. And as I go, you can see it's getting lighter as some of the paint, the water has come through, but the paint is not coming through as much, so I need to go back and get more every now and then. And I'm actually going to go over this a couple of times because I want it to end up with a really white effect, because once this is done, then I want to colour it, so the more solid my white base is, the more easily I can colour. So I'm just going to go right over that corner, and you can see I'm adding more and more white. I want it to look as, it'll be a chalky effect, but I want it to look as white as I possibly can make it. But you can see I don't have to be very careful. I can just go over the whole thing. So this is really, really simple. You could do the leaves as well and colour them too. I elected not to. If you have a look here, I left my leaves bare. I kind of liked the effect of them just being uncoloured. But if you wanted to go in and use those, I think a great colour for that would be Mossy Meadow. It's a darker, more neutral green. But in the meantime, I think this is quite nice. So any bits that you think aren't white enough, just go back over them. And we're going to let that dry a little bit, and in the meantime I'm going to squeeze it together again, get a bit more ink, and I'm going to do the other flower at the other corner. Here I go. Now normally I would just leave that to dry, but because this is a video and we want it to be a little bit quicker, I'm actually going to bring my heat tool in again, and I'm going to dry that off with the heat tool. So give me a moment. Okay, that doesn't take very long at all. So now we get up to the bit where we add the colour. You do have to make sure that's dry before you try to add your colour. That's important. So you either let it dry normally or hit it with a heat tool if you're in a hurry like I just did. So I'm using Petal Pink ink, and I'm using a sponge dauber. I'm just going straight into my ink, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the centre of my Magnolia and sort of flick it out so that the colour sort of fades out as you're going outwards. Very, very easy to do. Just flick and keep adding the pink until you're satisfied with the amount of colour that you have. It doesn't take very much. It stands out quite nicely on the white ink. There we go. Same again with the other one. I'm going to flick that out. So how easy is this? Okay, really, really easy but effective technique that I think anyone can do, and very, very simple. To finish off my original card, I stamped the Thinking of You from the same set. So it's from this beautiful Good Morning Magnolia set. This one here, the Thinking of You, I stamped that in early espresso, and I popped it on a stitch shape framelit, one of the ovals, and then popped that on dimensionals, which I thought looked nice. But you could even stamp straight on your card base if you wished. And I used early espresso, but you could use soft suede, would also look good, or you could even do it embossed in gold if you wanted. So that was just another alternative. I hope you enjoyed that card today. For me, it's a really simple, easy effect that looks fabulous, and I hope that you'll get some use out of it too. Enjoy, guys. Bye-bye.